We're only a couple weeks away from James Gunn's Superman movie, marking the live-action beginning of the new DC universe, also known as the DCU. Technically speaking, Creature Commandos was the beginning of this new DCU, but I feel like for most people in their heads, it's going to be Superman as the beginning. So with that being said, I think it's a good time to go back and look at the DCEU to ask ourselves what went wrong, why didn't this work, what did work. Then I want to give you some things that I want from the new DC universe or the DCU. So today we say goodbye DCEU, hello DCU. Before we start, if you're new here, hi, I'm Kiki. Welcome to my channel, watcher of all things. It's so nice to have you. If you're not new here, it's lovely to see you again. Please just take a second to hit like, subscribe, and comment underneath what you want from the new DC universe. What did you love about the old DC universe? What do you think didn't work? All that good stuff. I want to hear from you. And just a disclaimer, I feel like my thoughts are going to be all over the place in this video because there's so much to talk about with the DCEU. But okay, now that that's out of the way, let's jump into what didn't work about the DCEU. Where to begin? Well, I want to start by just saying I don't think the problems of the DCEU can be pinned onto just one person. Like, this won't be a video just insulting Zack Snyder and everything he does as a creator. He did 2.5 kind of these movies, so I think it's far from just his issues. But I want to start with our heroes' origins, their introductions to this universe, and their careers as superheroes. Mostly good origins and intros. Man of Steel introduces a youngish Superman and shows his origin story, fair enough, that's fine. Batman v Superman introduces a Dark Knight Returns aged Batman that is pretty cool, and Wonder Woman has been living in the shadows this whole time. All of that kind of made sense in the moment, but to me it felt like the DCEU was kind of painted into a corner from the very beginning. Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck feel like they're the same age in Batman v Superman, even though Ben Affleck's Batman has been around for 20 years, but also introducing an older Batman right away didn't really leave a lot of variety for the paths that we could take with his character. The only path you really could take is his return to goodness and being a proper hero and getting rid of the murder stuff, which they did. But with Superman, by the time we get to Batman v Superman, it feels like he's already been around for 20 years like Batman, and only in his second film we're already doing the Death of Superman storyline. Like, we've just started this universe, we've barely gotten to know these characters, and it feels like we've already speedrun their entire careers. But then we have a young Flash, a young Aquaman, a young Cyborg, no Green Lantern. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the heroes' characterizations and all of their various career paths kind of felt a little bit too jumbled together in our first two movies, and that just speaks to a larger issue that would reoccur throughout the entire DCEU: weak writing over and over and over again. I think the moment I knew the DCEU was in trouble was when Diana opened her computer and had an email from Bruce Wayne going line by line, opening folders and talking about all these metahumans that Lex had kind of named himself. It's certainly an idea, but it's not a good idea. And again, Batman killing will never be good to me. I'm sorry, Zack Snyder. So much of the DCEU just feels like it's all a first draft, and it's a script that no one else has looked at except the director. That's why so many of the scripts feel rushed, underbaked, or just kind of bland. There's no overall creative process for everyone to take part in. For me, there was only really 2 good scripts in the entire DCEU. I'd say the first Shazam movie and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. The rest of them just feel so overwhelming and like they are all just trying to tick boxes as part of this larger universe. Formulaic, I guess, is the proper word you could use. Show the hero doing basic things and that's just good enough. No, we need more. The DCEU had a good villain in their very first movie with Michael Shannon as Zod, and didn't have another good villain for 5 more movies until we get Ocean Master / King Orm. That is a major problem. From Pa Kent's death in Man of Steel all the way to whatever that third act in The Flash was. Regardless, the DCEU lacked quality in writing. And you cannot talk about the issues of the DCEU without addressing the overall vision of the universe and creative control. It was always a plan to do a shared universe if Man of Steel did well at the box office, which, you know, even if it was critically mixed, it did pretty well financially. But the shared universe felt very improvised after Man of Steel. They didn't have a really good version of their Kevin Feige, the guy that can go around making sure all of these projects line up creatively and just monetarily. I guess it was kind of Zack Snyder for the first 2 movies, but when Batman v Superman didn't make $1 billion, it was also critically panned. Warner Brothers panicked and they kind of scrapped a whole new idea, so they decided, hey, we should probably make our own film studio just for the DC stuff. So they made DC films in 2016. They hired Jeff Johns and John Berg to oversee the creative direction. Look at this film slate. How many did we actually get? It's shocking to look back and see how poorly executed this entire thing was. So those two guys lasted 3 movies and were replaced by Walter Hamada, whose plans were pretty much just vibes and greenlighting whatever people wanted to make. No overall vision, just keep building on these movies that are not doing well at the box office. Only one movie in the entire DCEU broke $1 billion, and that's the first Aquaman movie. Yeah, Aquaman, not Superman, not Batman, the guy that talks to fish. And you know, up to Aquaman, these movies were doing okay. They'd make around 600 to 875 million, but nothing out of this world. And movie by movie, the overall roadmap that DC Films had created was very quickly decaying. The DCEU was the definition of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And not much did. Unless you were a diehard fan, you're not really making a trip to the theater to see these movies. I did a rewatch of all the DCEU films before this video, and I was shocked how many I had actually missed over the years. And maybe you could say that some people were hesitant to engage with this art because of the fandom that it attracted, and they didn't want to be associated with this kind of thing. But that's a whole other can of worms that I don't really want to get into. So many things went wrong for the DCU, like I have not even grazed the surface. Remember Henry Cavill's mustache and that whole thing? All of the very devastating drama that happened on the set of Justice League after Zack Snyder left the project. And of course, when The Flash was being promoted, Ezra Miller was just running around as a criminal. There was a new DC drama story every week. But I think creatively speaking, on screen, the issues were very apparent. Bad scripts, bad characterizations, bad casting, no creative overall vision. It was just kind of a mix of very bad disasters over and over again. And you know, when it started, I remember I was excited for these projects. I probably watched the Batman v Superman teaser a million times after Comic-Con in 2015, 2016. And for a while, DC was kind of celebrated as, oh, they're the darker universe in comparison to Marvel, which makes the lighthearted family stuff. But after a while, it just gets depressing. You cannot have a depressed Superman for 10 movies. So I'm always curious how the actual roadmap for the DCEU would have gone if it was a perfect world. And again, it's not one person's fault. Like, I don't think you can blame Zack Snyder for what happened in this universe, especially because I'm always going to have sympathy for him and what he went through during the Justice League issues and his personal life issues. And maybe building a universe on his 2 movies wasn't a good idea. Again, you needed some kind of Kevin Feige type guy to be like, well, maybe he shouldn't be the first 2 movies. Because when the foundations of a shared universe are so weak after only 2 movies, it's really hard to build from there. Okay, now that I have the bad stuff out of the way, why the universe didn't work, I want to talk about what I think actually worked for the DCEU, starting with comic booky moments. There was some genuinely page to screen stuff in this universe. I'd say each film gave me at least one moment where I was like, oh, that felt like a comic book brought to life. Man of Steel, we have the awesome first flight scene with such an amazing score where it was just really fun to see him be blown away by his own powers. Batman v Superman, we have that elite warehouse site that just feels like one of the Arkham games. Jesus, I mean, even the first Suicide Squad movie, I think the vault scene with Captain Boomerang and the Flash is actually pretty funny. And even the final 3 movies, when the universe was really dying, delivered some good stuff. And you know what? I'm going to compliment the Flash. I think 2/3 of that movie are actually pretty good. The 3rd act is where everything just goes wrong and it just feels so random and AI generated plastic rubbery slop. One of the most inhumane things I've ever watched in my life. But before that 3rd act, I like the use of Ben Affleck in that movie. I love the return of Michael Keaton as Batman. And I think Sasha Calle is actually a good Supergirl. Even the final film, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is just the biggest wet fart of a finale to a universe I've ever seen, has some touching and endearing stuff between our brothers Arthur and King Orm. Really, in this universe, for me, there's only 2 films where it's hard to see any positives. Those would be David Ayer's Suicide Squad, which is one of the most depressing, just brain rot movies ever, and Joss Whedon's Justice League, which feels like a corpse being operated on. Otherwise, every movie actually had something fun for me. And another thing that really worked for me in the DCEU, as messy as this film is, the first 60 minutes of Batman v Superman are very good. Apart from CIA Jimmy Olsen, I hate that. Well, actually, I should be more specific. I think all of the Batman stuff works really well at the start of that movie, specifically this mystery of the white Portuguese. I hadn't watched it in a couple of years, but you know what? When I did for this video, I was kind of taken aback how much I was enjoying it for the first hour. And ironically, where the movie gets a little bit boring and I stopped caring is when our two heroes met. At that point, I'm tired of mopey Superman, I'm tired of his awful chemistry with his Lois Lane, and I'm loving Batman's story. Just stick to that, that's way cooler. It's a shame it didn't work. That was such an interesting cultural moment in our world. The Martha scene, Ben Affleck on the press tour, and kind of everyone coming to terms with this DCEU not being what we wanted it to be. But still, I was really pleasantly surprised rewatching this. I mean, the warehouse scene I've watched a million times in the last few years, but I was surprised how good Ben Affleck is. I think a lot of the success of that first hour of Batman v Superman goes down to how good Ben Affleck is as an actor. He is a perfect Bruce Wayne in that movie. He's a very good Batman other than the murdering. I like everything about his character. I think the voice modulator makes sense. I like his Batmobile apart from all of the machine guns and murdering people. And his dynamic with Jeremy Irons' Alfred is just really good. And their first interaction at that party where he meets Clark Kent on behalf of the Daily Planet, Ben Affleck puts an acting clinic on Henry Cavill's ass. Not just because he's seriously a fantastic actor, Ben Affleck, like I think everybody knows that, but Henry Cavill just feels so mismatched and mopey and one note in comparison to this really fun, almost varied performance as Bruce Wayne, where after 20 years he's coming to terms with everything just kind of going in the gutter. I don't know, there's a lot to take away from Ben Affleck's performance in that movie. Another thing, or things I haven't really mentioned that much so far, are Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad. Easily, for my money, the two best things we've gotten from this universe. The Suicide Squad is hilarious, it's so endearing, it has such a heartfelt story. I like that it builds on the previous Suicide Squad film in parts, but really does its own thing. And then Peacemaker was a delight to watch week to week, and I'm so excited for season 2 this summer. I'm especially excited to see how they'll fold it into the new universe. I'm guessing Pocket Dimension, which it looks like we'll see some Pocket Dimensions in Superman actually, but those are now kind of canon to the DCU, so I won't talk about them that much. But the final thing I loved from the DCEU, and it's kind of a fluke that we got it, Matt Reeves, the Batman. I think it is a little bittersweet how amazing the Batman is, because Ben Affleck very quickly grew tired of the role. He was very clearly having personal life issues, and he's spoken about how sad he was that his own son didn't want to watch the movies. But sometimes out of a negative thing you get a positive thing, and I think Ben Affleck is doing a lot of really interesting projects now. And I think The Batman is the best Batman movie ever, and it's my favorite superhero movie ever, closely followed by Spider-Man 2 and Superman from 1978. And we really have the failure of the DCEU to thank for this amazing project. And The Batman still has a future, who knows what it will be, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But look, overall with the DCEU, of course there's probably more negatives than positives to this entire universe, but I think it's very difficult to say that nothing worked here. Shazam 1, Blue Beetle, the Suicide Squad, the first Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the first hour of Batman v Superman, even Zack Snyder's Justice League I think is a huge improvement obviously on the theatrical version. So stuff really did work and was enjoyable, and up to 15 years old it was all DC for me. I remember going to Man of Steel with my friends for my birthday the year it came out. I was so excited for Batman v Superman, and even if I had mixed emotions, it was still a very memorable theatrical experience for me. I remember when Jeff Johns shared the DCEU plan on TV before the release of BVS, and it seemed like, hey, this could be a really cool shared universe thing for DC fans. And as much as this universe, frankly speaking, sucked, we got some really cool stuff, and I think it set up what a proper DC universe should look like in the future. Which brings me to the final section of this video, what I want from the DCU run by James Gunn and Peter Safran. A lot of these things have been spoken about by James Gunn or the creatives themselves, but I'm gonna mention them anyways because they haven't been delivered or proven yet. Up first, I want the DCU to emphasize artistic visions and allow interesting filmmakers to come on board and show their version of these heroes, while maintaining a shared universe that doesn't retcon itself or have glaring continuity issues. One big issue that I've always had with Marvel is their movies feel like they're all directed by one person, the studio. They all pretty much look the exact same. I want the DCU to be different, have the movies and shows look different, jump between animation and live action projects, give us that Mike Flanagan Clayface, but vet every script and make sure every project is so super prepared before going into production. No more on the fly blockbusters. The DCU has to move past those days, and honestly honestly, I think Marvel should be doing that too. Let the artists have time so they can deliver a great film in your shared universe. And I know James Gunn has already said that they in fact canceled one film that was greenlit because it wasn't ready. That's fine to me. I'd rather you cancel a film before going into production than instead of after it's wrapped, David Zaslav. No more Batgirl situations. If you aren't confident in a project, don't make it until it's ready, and give the visual effects artists time. I think that's one thing I've loved a lot about the DCU so far, is both Superman and Supergirl have had like a year of post-production just to focus on visual effects and making the movie look as good as possible. So far those wishes have been granted. We've had the Authority seemingly slow down because they just can't crack the script. Sergeant Rock, as much as it disappointed me that that project has been pushed a year, it's probably for the best. I have no issues with hearing that kind of news. We don't want a Sony Spider-Man universe situation. My next wish, I kind of want them to keep casting lesser known actors. And I said keep because I feel like they're already kind of doing this. David Corenswet, not a huge star, but now he is playing arguably the biggest character in pop culture. Rachel Brosnahan was a star with the awesome show Marvelous Miss Maisel, but she's not like a mega global superstar that everyone recognizes. Millie Alcock is Supergirl. Again, she's in a very popular show, but she's not some global superstar. And just last week, their choice for Clayface, I think that's awesome. He's a smaller actor. I think he's popular in Wales, but he's not really popular anywhere else. Like, yes, obviously you're gonna have familiar stars like Nicholas Hoult or Isabella Merced, but for the most part, I'm really liking how they are casting their projects so far, and I want them to keep doing that. My next wish, less is more. We don't need 15 movies and 8 television shows a year. If there's a year where we only get one DC movie and then a couple TV shows, that's fine. Don't make this universe feel like homework. Of course, Marvel Studios is guilty of this right now, and I really hope they can fix it. But DC, don't go there. Maybe you do 2 movies and 1 television show a year, or 2 movies, 2 television shows. If you're gonna make 3 movies a year, I think one of them has to be animated so you can cater to more people. But my main point, less is more. Okay, this next wish is more character related, but I want our heroes to feel like superheroes in this universe, and public facing heroes. The DCEU, there's not a lot of like public interaction or just saving the public in general where everyone's like, oh my god, you're the Flash. Like Wonder Woman, both movies, no one knows who she is. She's just this mystery lady. I don't know, I kind of want to see little girls looking up to Wonder Woman and being like, that's Wonder Woman. And it looks promising that Superman will deliver this, that he is this public celebrity icon who people can look to in a nice way. I feel like the DCEU never embraced these characters as public heroes. Instead, their powers and their roles were always a burden, and it just gets really tiring really quickly. And just because the public loves them, that doesn't mean I don't want them to be criticized. I think they should be criticized. I think they should be held to very high standards. I think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man is actually a really good blueprint for how superheroes should be treated by their city. But DC, please let our heroes just be fun public superheroes. Maybe not Batman, of course, because he's kind of this dark figure, but have him be the symbol of hope. Alright, this next wish is an easy one because James Gunn has mentioned it specifically, but post-credit scenes. Just give a little fun, emotional beat at the end of the credits and move on. Stop setting up these massive things that we might never get, or these huge characters that no one's really going to recognize. The MCU has gotten so bad at post-credit scenes recently that it's almost a shock when we get one we kind of enjoy. With post-credit scenes, just go back to the basics. Even if we don't get them, that's fine with me too. Okay, my second last wish. No multiverses and no bringing people back to life. Again, James Gunn kind of already talked about this. I think he posted on Threads that in the DCU, if you die, you're dead. I am so on board with that, and I promise after this point I'll stop comparing this to the Marvel universe, but the MCU gives no weight to people's deaths. I feel like in the MCU, you're never really dead, and there's always a chance to come back now, and every movie it's like, great, which random character from 2002 in an offshoot superhero movie is gonna pop up in this one? It's really frustrating. So for the DCU, I want less possibilities for characters to come back. Finally, my very last wish for the DCU, and this is a very fanboy wish, so I am so sorry ahead of time, and it's almost definitely not going to happen because James Gunn has said no, it's not happening so many times, but I'm a dreamer and don't let anyone tell you that you cannot dream in life. Make Robert Pattinson's Batman the DCU Batman. He was cast as a young Batman way back in 2019. Since then, he's had one movie. Now, 6 years later, he's pushing 40. Luckily, he looks very youthful faithful because, you know, he's a vampire.
Beautiful. This is the skin of a killer, Bill.
However, I think actually they can kind of use this to their advantage at DC Studios. They keep saying that their Batman is middle-aged and they want him to be the father of Damian Wayne already. So theoretically middle-aged, he's going to be about 40 years old. And what do you know? Like I just said, Robert Pattinson is 39 years old. So James Gunn, if you are watching this, please, 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 you have a globally known actor who is freaking Edward Cullen, one of the most recognizable names in Hollywood. He's already proven he's a fantastic Batman. He happens to be the exact age you need your Batman to be. Fold him into your universe. I understand the tonal concerns that some people have, but I think it can work. Make the ground level crime stuff that we saw in the Batman or in the Penguin happen just in the Matt Reeves films, and then have all the fantastical monster stuff happen in the DCU team-up films. And every time I see a photo of Robert Pattinson's Batman and David Corenswet's Superman, it looks like a perfect match for the world's finest. And like he already is, Matt Reeves can keep producing all of the Batman projects. He's a producer on Clayface. It may seem like I have a lot of wishes for the DCU, but honestly, most of them are already kind of being promised, and I don't think any of them are too far-fetched or asking too much. They're all kind of what you would expect from a properly run shared universe. But will we get them? I don't know. Oh man, it feels weird saying goodbye to the DCEU, but honestly, it's time. It's been running on fumes for a while now, so I think it's just the perfect moment to move on to something else. What the DCU has in store for us, I really don't know, but I'm fairly optimistic. Every promo, every trailer, every advert that I've seen for Superman, I've really liked. I'm just so nervous what it's gonna be like. I love Superman so much, I just want this movie to be good, please. But I think I'm done rambling for now. That was a lot processing 12 years of my media consumption. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to hear more stuff like this, go check out my weekly podcast, Watcher of All Things. It's my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment, with new episodes dropping every Monday. You can find it on all streaming platforms or right here on this wonderful YouTube channel. But for now, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you know when new podcast episodes or videos drop. And one final time, goodbye DCEU, hello DCU. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Kal-El, no!